but I think it's worth it because ultimately it will lead to you leveling up your understanding of Spanish, especially if you're like in the beginning stages of still questioning the Spanish syntax and word order and you still have your doubts. I recently posted 2 fascinating videos comparing how English would sound with the Spanish syntax and how Spanish would sound with the English syntax, and they went a little like this.
I can help if me you give your number. Thanks, what kind you are. Now me you fall well. Tengo no visitar a tu abuela casa con tú en un largo tiempo. Sí, creo que el pasado año fue el último tiempo que tú visitaron, ¿no?
Now I got a lot of supportive comments agreeing that both languages sound super weird and hilarious as the other, but also someone commented something pretty interesting about how we can essentially use those very examples to master speaking Spanish. And it got me thinking. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Nas, and here I speak all things language learning, where right now I'm documenting my road to fluency learning Spanish. So if you want to learn and grow with me, then consider subscribing. Do you want to improve or even master speaking Spanish this year? Hit the thumbs up button so I can know how many of you guys are with me. You did it? Great. Well, you're in luck because today I'll be sharing one simple exercise that you guys can practice to skyrocket your Spanish today. Now, when it comes to learning how to speak another language, pronunciation is only one side of the coin, and I'll tackle more of that later on the channel, so subscribe if you want to. But the other bad boy is syntax. We have to tackle this, master this, understand this if we want to master speaking Spanish. Syntax is the arrangement of words and phrases to create well-formed sentences in a language. On my last video, someone commented, I actually find knowing the literal translation helps me speak Spanish better. For example, knowing you have heat or have cold, have years or have hunger makes it easy to know I use tener. Another example is when to use lo que. I think of it in English as that which. And if I can use that which in English and it would make sense, then I use lo que. I thought this was an interesting observation, and it got me thinking, how can we really use our native language to master another language, our target language? Number 1 is to identify the differences. There are 5 main ways that Spanish differs from English: verb conjugation, sentence structure, word order, gender agreements, and the use of articles. So what if I told you that I had a 2-in-1 combo activity that you can practice to start leveling up your Spanish, how you speak Spanish right now? And even just leveling up your understanding of the language as well. And that is translation exercises and the language comparison. Don't click off the video just yet because a lot more on that in a bit. I'm getting somewhere, trust me. Now we've already established that the English word order differs from the Spanish word order. So my personal rule of thumb is if you're translating something to Spanish and it looks or sounds like a mimic of what the English would be, then generally you're probably wrong. Now, of course, you have exceptions because, for example, in more simple sentences like La pluma es azul, in English, it will basically be a replica of that same word ordering in saying the pen is blue. So when do you know if it's okay or not okay to mimic the English word order in Spanish? This just comes with more exposure to the language. You have to immerse yourself in reading and listening to the language, and then eventually you'll pick up on certain patterns or observations that even your Spanish textbooks probably didn't tell you. So let's take what I said.
But I want to invite to the party of my birthday.
What was the Spanish for that? Te quiero invitar a la fiesta de mi cumpleaños, ¿sí? So here's what I want you guys to do on your own to master speaking Spanish. Step 1. Find sentences in Spanish online or in a Spanish book that match your current level of Spanish. And let's say the sentence you found was, Te quiero invitar a la fiesta de mi cumpleaños. Step 2, I then want you to translate this sentence literally, not the way you know or think it's supposed to sound in English, but the literal word-for-word translation, which would be, you I want to invite to the party of my birthday. Take a hard look at the sentence and you can more than likely pretty easily figure out what it was actually supposed to say in English. And therefore, step 4, write down the correct way of saying that sentence in English, being, I want to invite you to my birthday party. Step 5, do a language comparison. So let's break the sentence into 2. The first part being, te quiero invitar. This was equivalent to the literal English translation, you I want to invite. Some of you may know that you could have also said, quiero invitarte. So what's the first observation? That the Spanish syntax is pretty flexible. But is it ever okay to say you I want to invite in the English syntax? No. Therefore, the English syntax is not so flexible. But again, there are exceptions with every language, and there are quite a bit of similarities between English and Spanish, but these all come with more exposure. So let's go. We can note in Spanish that the second person subject pronoun, in this case a reflexive pronoun, precedes the verb, but in English it typically follows the verb, and therefore it would really say, I want to invite you. And you can go a step further to say that it specifically follows the infinitive verb, meaning the unconjugated verb, in Spanish being invitar, and in English being to invite. Are you following? If you are, hit the thumbs up button, let me know. The second half of the sentence said, a la fiesta de mi cumpleaños. Now this was equivalent to the English literal translation of, to the party of my birthday. But the correct English is, to my birthday party, obviously, right? Looking at this phrase, what do you see? What I see is that the birthday in this phrase kind of acts as the adjective for the party. Because it's saying, okay, what type of party is it? It's a birthday party. It's like that describing word for the type of party. And depending on your level of Spanish, you'd know, I mean, of course, like I said, the Spanish syntax is pretty flexible, but generally the adjective follows the noun in the Spanish syntax. Whereas in English, the noun precedes, the adjective precedes the noun, which is why the party of my birthday sounds strange, sounds funny, right? But there's one last thing you're probably questioning, the use of the de. What is it doing there? What's its purpose? And how do we fit that into the English translation? So in English, we tend to use apostrophe s's a lot. So for example, we say my mother's house or Sarah's pen. But in Spanish, the apostrophe s does not exist. So to show that sign of possession or belonging, there comes the use of de. To basically say it's this thing, of this thing, or this person. So for example, la casa de mi madre or la pluma de Sara. Now I think if you really look at it and understand it this way, then this same concept can apply for our example phrase. You could think of it as the party is belonging to the birthday. I know it sounds strange, but this will kind of help you to understand the concept, I think. Remember I said earlier that in this case, the birthday is kind of like the describing word for what type of party it is. It's a birthday party. So in the same way, it's as if the party is like belonging to the birthday. So therefore, the party belongs to the birthday. Therefore, in Spanish syntax, being the party of my birthday. Does that make sense? I think the more you practice this simple exercise, the more you'll pick up on a lot of patterns in the Spanish sentence structure and maybe even begin to see, the language or understand it in a new way. Because this exercise will even force you to go research the reasoning behind stuff, because maybe you know that something is supposed to be said a particular way, but you don't always know the reasoning why. And it's good to also know why you say what you say sometimes. So doing this extra research, and of course doing all of this would definitely require you sitting down and dedicating serious study time to do the activity. But I think it's worth it, because ultimately it will lead to you leveling up your understanding of Spanish, especially if you're in the beginning stages of still questioning the Spanish syntax and word order and you still have your doubts. I think if you do this and do a side-by-side comparison with English, Spanish, and the more you do it, the more you expose yourself to Spanish, you pick up on certain patterns on your own, and it's remarkable. Eventually, of course, the goal would be to not have to do this activity at some point. But like I said, if you're still in the stages of trying to understand just how speaking Spanish works and learning how to speak Spanish, then I think this could really be beneficial for you. But that's just me. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. And if you're really on a serious journey to improve speaking Spanish and you're looking for some more simple but effective exercises to add to your study routine, then click the video on the screen right now to hear about another powerful but really basic exercise that you can practice to skyrocket your Spanish today.